So with store regionals coming up, I figured this would be a great video to cover everything and anything that you might want to be thinking about for competitive play. So without further ado, let's dive in the video and talk about it. So guys, we are going to be taking a look. This will be a couple honorable mentions, and then I'll start telling you which one will be like guarantee you better be playing this for the event. But these could be rogue strategies that could possibly lead you to getting some W's. Now, again, it's up to you how you want to build and play your decks. I don't think Gmon's supposed to be in here. I think they're supposed to be playing the Adventure, but at the end of the day, I think Adventure, the deck, has a lot going for it in a positive way. I think for new player friendlies that are just signing up for the store regionals, I think this is going to be one of the decks that can help you out, get you there. But it's all player dependent and all those good stuff here. So just remember that when you do play any card game, deck synergy and deck power does matter. And with this deck being able to play everything tribal and show that this tribal deck has a lot going for it, you know, if a deck can go faster than it and you don't have your color tamer set up right away, that's probably what's going to kill you most of the time. But at the end of the day, to be honest, you have a lot going for you in this deck that just, if you can get the color tamers up, most of this deck basically hits your opponent hard and fast. So definitely have to see what EX9 brings to the table, but yeah, we got some good stuff here. Now, another big option is possibly playing Shine Gmon. I think this deck is a sleeper pick for a lot of players, but there are going to be players that are really wanting to play Shine Gmon to punch through. So I think you have a lot of good resources because Shine Gmon, being able to do the Shine Gmon shenanigans it does. Let's get a better representation because this one seems like it's missing everything. Everything, he says? Everything. Let's get a better Shine Gmon list to work with. I hate when we can't have a good Shine Gmon list. Shine, 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 shine Gmon. We'll have to go to Japan. Japan and China. Show me the money. There we go. Here we go. See, this is more of a confident list that I can see players getting behind. You know, it does have a new option that just for the turn, one of your Marcuses is treated as a 12,000 Digimon and can't Digivolve, gains Rush, and then that may attack an opponent's Digimon. Your opponent's unsuspended Digimon cannot be attacked with this effect. You know, not a bad trade-off. I think the deck has a lot going for it, especially with the Marcuses, the new Marcus, burst modes, and all the good stuff across the board. So, yeah. Now, again, 7 Great Demon Lords, another deck you guys should be thinking about as well. I think a lot of players backburn this deck for a bit, but I think in the competitive scene it could definitely do some crazy shenanigans, especially because it can abuse Shoto. You know, having all these megas be ready for when you are swinging. Yeah, being able to block and just stop your turns is kind of nasty, to be honest with you. So the deck has a lot going for it, especially because it can play Digimon Emperor because it doesn't care. You know, at the end of the day, this deck has some great positives and not many Psychmons in the format, which would punish it. Now, again, I think this deck is another big sleeper pick. Gotcha, Applemon is a very good deck. I think under the right pilot, it can definitely cause some damage. And at the end of the day, you're not going to see much variable changes until we start seeing more and more support with Gaiamon. But again, this deck has a very powerful boss Digimon. If you're not worried about getting de-digivolved every 30 seconds, this deck could do you justice through a regional. Oh, well, store regional. So yeah, just something to think there. But now let's get into the big boys. We know that Royal Paladins are going to be a big, well, Royal Knights are going to be a big epicenter front and center kind of deck. This deck is not going anywhere anytime soon, and You know, being able to slam down big bodies that your opponent has to immediately answer at these reduced costs. And if they don't answer every single time, you're just going to punish them back and forth, just because you do have these great, powerful Digimon. You know, Omegamon being able to go into Omnimon X antibodies is huge. You know, even just having Cool Boy in the deck just changed up the deck's game plan so much that it's just scary. Now, Hunters is another option. At the end of the day, you know, Arrestramon Superior Mode was way ahead of its time. Giving this option as a great removal source is really good. Would I play these two? No, but there are people that are starting to tech in Fire Rocket, which is another way of being aggressive, because why not? One of your Digimon with 2 or more colors gains security attack 1 for the turn. You know, being able to hit for 2 and while you have save and stuff like that, really good. You know, this Tigeru filled in the role, and it was huge. This might be the Hero Hunter version, but this is not a bad idea to be thinking about Hunters for your regionals, store events. Just a very good deck all around. Now, Red, Purple, Imperial Dramon definitely is a deck to think about for the events as well. The deck does what it does extremely well. You know, the only time you lose is when you don't see your pieces, and that is basically it. If you don't see a Dino Beamon, you don't see the Wormmon, you don't see the Shadramon, you know, you're going to be struggling a little bit. But at the end of the day, they are starting to tech in Program Emergency Halt. I started noticing this has been an option choice just to kind of stop option related heavy decks. And it's no surprise that it's going to start making a reappearance. Magna X Antibody is another great pick. If you guys have it, sure, go for it. If you don't have Magna X, do not invest money into this just to try to win. But, you know, having Isles of Adventure and Genai's House all help to make sure that, you know, Alphamon or Ryukin mode Ace doesn't just make Magna X Antibody have a bad day. So that's just kind of where that goes, and the deck is pretty solid. Now, again, another big pick that a lot of players are excited to pick from is going to be the Megidramon Dukemon list. Deck has a lot going for it in the positive direction, and it's not going to disappear anytime soon. So just something to think about when deck building wise. This deck is a powerhouse. It is not something to sleep on. You know, this will do a lot of damage in competitive play, and yeah, I mean, this deck just basically being able to nuke the board, you know, dark hold the board after it attacks, after dealing so much damage, is crazy in some circumstances. And it just leaves your opponent just having a bad day. This is just interesting here. To be honest with you, if you are playing the Cicados, you probably want to play this Growlmon. But at the end of the day, up to you how you want to go about it. But I really like where the list is going. Now, again, Venmon is another great pick into the format. Just a lot of players, the only gatekeeping card right now is the promo, and it's climbing, guys. The rest of the deck is just super budget friendly, and the promo is the only thing that got out of your hands, out of your way. Now, you do have Gallantmon being another great resource choice. The deck has a lot going for it because Gallantmon X is just that good of a powerhouse, and it's just a classic, you know, got the right support now, and it's ready to dominate. So, hey, if you guys want and you've had this built for a while, this is not a bad choice to take to the events. Now, again, Tsukuyamon is going to be another big one that you're going to want to make sure you're thinking about. If you have all this and you're ready to go for it. Punish your opponent, make your opponent have a bad day. That is straight honest with you here. This deck is a token generator, and just be happy this deck does what it does. You know, the Renamon players have been dying for a competitive deck for so long, and the restriction list didn't even knock this thing completely out, and it's just here competitively viable. So just keep that in mind. I think this deck is here to stay. Now, Blue-Green Imperial Dramon definitely is a very contender as well. You know, the deck got a slap on the wrist with the Stingmon, and they just didn't care. The deck still does a lot for as little resources as it does. Being able to stun lock with the Gmon is huge, and it just leads to your opponent having to also think about when you have Return of the Ancestors. You know, teching in Hexablow just to punish your opponents as well is not a bad strategy. So just something to think about. Now, then we do have Purple Hybrid being another option. Purple Hybrid is one of those better decks as well. It gained a lot going for it, to be honest with you. The fact that basically it gained Superior Mode out of nowhere is funny, because Superior Mode basically helps climb, but also being able to attack an extra damage can lead to your opponent having a bad time. They're also teching in the Gallantmons because the rush aspect that it gives is huge. You know, at the end of the day, Gallantmon has a lot going for it in the positive directions. I think a lot of players will have to learn and adapt, but with Purple Hybrid, you know, this deck thought was going to disappear completely off the face of the earth. Oh boy, were you wrong. This deck just decided to come back full swinging. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace.